Here are some of the most common questions in finance interviews and some of the best answers that you could give to hopefully land the next role. Depending on the type of job you're applying for, the specific questions that get asked in an interview can differ a lot, even within the finance space. So these are going to be some general but very often asked and widely applicable interview questions that you need to know how to nail. We're going to start off with two very important ones that actually don't even deal with any specific financial calculations, but I can tell you these two things need to be done well in the finance interview to land a finance job. The first one is a very common question, and that's going to be, why do you want this job? Why are you interested in this position? Why do you want to work for this company? They're all sort of asking the same thing. Answering this question can feel a little bit odd, especially if you're a realist like I am, because maybe you've applied to 20 different jobs and the honest answer is something along the lines of,
well, I just need to get my foot in the door in the finance field.
But that is not an adequate answer for any interview. If you want yourself to stand out amongst all the other candidates that may be interviewing for this job, you really need to know something specific about the job or the company that you are trying to apply for and be able to relate that to your life and something you are genuinely interested in and be able to talk about it. Let's say you're interviewing for an internship or a full-time analyst job in asset management, and you're gonna work for a company that consults for major pension managers, endowments, institutional managers, things like that. Your answer needs to be specific enough about and relate to the work that you're gonna be doing in that position. Maybe there were a couple college classes you took that you really liked, and you know that there's gonna be some overlap between that material and your position in this company. Maybe you read about a specific consulting project that this company helped out with before, and some institutional manager made the right allocation in a crazy market time, and you want to be a part of that. There has to be some type of story, an actual emotional buy-in on your part to be able to really knock these questions out of the park. You just have to practice these types of things, rehearse them, prepare for them in the week leading up to that interview so that you have some type of connection you can make to things you're interested in with that job. The next one, again, we're still not yet in the finance technical types of questions, but this is probably the most important thing that you can do in an interview, and it's not a specific question, but it's something you need to convey to the interviewer. And that is that you are a valuable asset to the company. I'm gonna define valuable in a few ways. You're a good person, you are hardworking, and you have some integrity. You're honest, you treat people well, that type of thing. All three of those themes can really overlap or relate to one another, but 9 times out of 10, if you can describe just through your body language, the way you speak, the respect that you show people in the office or the interviewer you're actually talking to, if you can accurately convey that you're an honest, good person, that people like to be around, you're respectful, you're kind, you're hardworking, you get the job done, just through your body language and the way you speak, you're going to right away put yourself at the top of the list amongst any candidates for that position. The difficult thing here is you have to convey this aura of value throughout the course of the interview. So it's not just something you can practice and apply to one of your interview answers. You need to carry yourself in such a way that's very friendly and it's good to meet you. And these are the things why I've been valuable in the past. I plan to continue to do those, and I like working together with everyone. That type of energy or demeanor carried on throughout the interview is exactly what managers like to see. I'm telling you, there are just way too many people out there interviewing for jobs who don't convey that type of value, that if you do that, you're gonna set yourself above the rest. Now you may be saying,
hey AJ, what if I'm
not those things,
but what if I don't really carry myself in that way?
You just need to practice it. Not all of us, I certainly wasn't wired to carry this valuable person aura just in the way you walk and talk and interact, but it can be practiced. Honestly, I've liked to watch YouTube videos of like kind and successful business leaders who just are honest, good working people with integrity. They treat others well. If you watch them and how they move and how they speak and the way they smile at people and shake hands, you just have to start trying to practice mimicking that and replicating that. And if you're able to do this even in a fraction of the amount of how some of the best business leaders do it, you're gonna be able to convey value in the interview. Trust me, it'll make a huge difference. The third one is very commonly asked in many different areas of the finance field, and that's going to be to describe to me the 3 major, or maybe all 4 types of financial statements, or describe some of their line items or what they are useful for doing, or the differences in when you would use different financial statements. Really, you gotta have an understanding of those 3 or 4 overall important ideas. The thing that sticks out to me about this is that that's really an accounting question, and that's another one of the reasons why I've always said that accounting undergraduate classes when you're in university are probably the most valuable in terms of the proportion of the information they teach actually getting applied throughout the rest of your finance career. So you need to be able to talk through the income statement, some of the highlights, maybe the 5 to 10 most common lines on there, and ultimately what net income is used to tell you. The balance sheet, same thing, and statement of cash flows. You have to be able to describe how these are useful, and the best interview answers, here's another tip for you, are going to relate something you've done or work that you've been a part of in the past to your answer. And you can describe, I've dealt with a case before where we were working on a valuation of a business and there was some odd accounting going on where, the revenues looked overstated, but based on the cash flows from operations, we saw that some of these books were not exactly reflecting reality of what the business was bringing in. And so we came to ultimately the lower valuation, the market value, something like that. That really shows the interviewer you know what you're talking about. So yes, you need to have gone through some accounting classes to actually know what you're talking about here. It's not just telling them, I think this financial statement's cool and this one I don't like. That really doesn't convey much information. It's answer their question clearly, describe the differences between each, or 5 or 10 common line items between each. But then if you can relate those again to your real world life and areas where you have some experience, and describe how you can be of help to the company in your knowledge or through your knowledge of these things, your answer is going to put yourself above the rest. Probably the next most common function that can apply to a wide variety of finance jobs is financial modeling, and specifically in Microsoft Excel. Now, the more technical and intensive finance jobs like an investment banking analyst, they may have you do a DCF model in Excel during the interview. Anyone trying to get into a banking role is going to know that, and they're going to have practiced DCF models and different ways they can be built and trying to do them very quickly. So just in general, you don't need to know how to do a discounted cash flow model very quickly, but you have to have some idea of what financial modeling is used for, how to build a financial model in Excel, which you can learn very well on YouTube from. My friend Kenji has probably the best YouTube channel about this in my opinion. And a similar principle applies here. If you can describe how to build a financial model and why it's useful, but then importantly relate that answer to how you can apply them in your role at the company to help benefit that company, all while talking about, being a team player and being an honest and kind person, that interview answer is again going to make you the cream of the crop amongst all the other candidates. There are not many people thinking out all these different steps of each question and answer that they give. And so if you do these things, I think you're gonna give yourself a high probability of landing your job. If that happens, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be interested to hear about any cases where you were able to use some of the principles that I'm talking about here and get into a position you're really excited about. I wanna hit on another non-technical interview question, which is tell me about yourself, because I feel like this is one area where you can make a huge difference between one type of an answer versus another. And it has to be a live game day, face-to-face decision with that interviewer on which direction you want to take your answer to this question. When someone asks you, tell me about yourself, in my opinion, there are two good ways to approach it. Number one is like the honest, realist way, which is, let's say you were like dating for a new friend and this person was going to be a casual friend in your life and you wanted to learn about each other. You might answer it in a certain way to be honest about like, I like these TV shows, I like these movies, video games, I do this or that with my friends on the weekends. Some of the more genuine answers, but less professional types of answers. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have tell me about yourself, and you just go all in on your professionalism and the type of professional things that relate to you in your life and how you relate to those to that area of work in your life. My personality leans a lot more casual and personal. So like if I'm interviewing someone, I'd rather like to hear an answer about, oh yeah, this is what I like to do. Here's where I go. I have a buddy with a house on the beach. We spend some time here. And obviously you want to work in some actual finance related topics. I studied this in college. I was really interested in it. I want this to be a part of my career. I do these things on the weekends, going back to the more casual. It's just like, in my opinion, how a real person actually is. That's the type of answer I like to hear when the tell me about yourself question comes up. However, I'm not the one conducting your upcoming interview. You may be with someone who's very formal, professional, and rigid, and either they don't really talk much about their personal life, or they really don't even have a true personal life because they spend so many hours working. You have to sort of read the room, and if the person is like a very uptight business professional type of person and they ask you, tell me about yourself, you don't want to go the angle that I just talked about. You probably don't want to tell them, hey, these are my favorite video games and like I like to stomp my buddies at Madden or something like that. NBA, doesn't matter. You don't want to go that route. You want to take the more professional, formal, rigid type of answer where you are just talking about why you're interested in your career and, you know, I've always been a part of the finance field. I like stock trading, whatever it is. You aren't really giving what I would call the true self answer, but you're giving more of the formal or professional self answer. If you're interviewing with someone who's really favoring that type of answer, your answer is going to look way better than someone who talked about playing flag football on the weekends, probably, or where they like to travel to, or their favorite type of beer to drink, or something like that. This is one where you really need to be engaged and aware of the person that you're talking with or the people you're talking with to try to present this answer in the best way. All of that is not easy to do, I'll admit, so it's definitely worth practicing any interview answers that you think might commonly come up in interviews like the ones I'm talking about in this video, with a friend, with a relative, and maybe even take both sides of the answer based on the dynamic that I just described. You have to practice this stuff beforehand to really give yourself a good fighting chance at speaking well and succinctly and clearly, and setting yourself above all the other candidates. My last tip should go without saying, but I've gotten just too many questions over the past handful of years from people going, you know, I'm in an interview or I'm going to do an interview and I'm planning to ask these questions. Can you look at them? Too many people think that they should be asking about logistics, vacation, pay, you know, retirement, whatever in a job during like the initial interview. Those things are super important, don't get me wrong, but they are not what the interviewer cares to talk with you about. They really want to decide on if you're a good fit for the role, and you want to decide on if you're a good fit for that company, to be honest with you. So really don't let the logistics of the job come into play at all during the first or maybe even second interview. All of those things, once you know you want to be in a position and the company knows they want you, then is when you hash out those types of things, because you have also a little bit more leverage at that point, and you know how valuable you think the job is, if you actually want to take the job or not, is what I mean. So just ignore the questions that are very important to the job, but they're not important to the interview process, like, you know, what am I gonna make per hour? Those are all gonna be secondary conversations. Use the tip. You might really benefit by not having those conversations in the interview. Okay, thank you very much for sticking around. Please check out other videos on my channel about finance job related topics if this one interests you.